sorry, Technology University has always been in the forefront of not just creating graduates and postgraduates, but creating a resource for the globe wherein our students can not only be job seekers, but job givers, can not only be effective executors, but creators, can not only be effective in their jobs, but effective in fulfilling their dreams. In this venture, we have begun with faculty development programs and student development programs for various aspects of intellectual property rights, of copyrights, of patenting, of trademarks. And now we have moved on to extensive dialogues on very, very crucial aspects of the topic. And today's webinar is a great venture in that regard. Today's webinar, the topic is prototype validation, converting prototype into a startup. And to enlighten us on this particular topic, to give us various aspects, we have Mr. Mohammad Sirajuddin, an alumni of Startup Leadership Program, active in the startup ecosystem of the country for over 9 years. He has an active multi-million dollar portfolio of over 12 startups like HoloSuite, Wellversed, Catapult, etc. His diverse specialities include scaling of technology startups, crowdfunding, strategy, business development, business deal structuring, sports management, and intellectual property creation in events. He is a very decorated person in the field, and his awards include Business World Tech Tours Award. He has been felicitated with Outstanding Contribution Award by Gendarmerie Minister of Madagascar for facilitating business and cultural exchange between India and Madagascar. He has received the Rex Karmavir Chakra by iCongo and United Nations. He has received the honor of being the best emerging startup Creators Gurukul, awarded for United Nations International Youth Day by Ranvijay Singh and Sri Vijay Goyal. Best Emerging Startup awarded by Sri Atul Garg. Best crowdfunding platform, Catapult for creative ideas. Best India Inspired Brand, awarded at National Business Summit Awards. The Emerging Entrepreneur in 2020, awarded by the Uttar Pradesh government and Kayet Group of Institutions. Most Viral Social Impact Campaign, awarded by short video platform Likee. Was rated as one of the top 40 people to follow on social media from startup ecosystem. Portfolio startup HoloSuite has been featured in Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi's Man Ki Baat. Sir, a very, very warm welcome to you, and the stage is all yours. Over to you, sir.
Thank you for the kind introduction, Dr. Momita, and thank you to the entire team of Techno India University for inviting me for this panel discussion and the opportunity to interact with young minds interested in entrepreneurship. I have always had great respect for Bengal as a land of enterprise and entrepreneurship, and I think it's a great initiative by Techno India University to work in this direction and sort of instill a sense of entrepreneurship among the young students. So probably before delving into the core topic, which is scaling from a prototype to a startup, I'll probably speak a little on the startup ecosystem and what is a startup. How did the term startup germinate? What's the difference between a business and a startup? So essentially, the term started from Silicon Valley in the mid 90s. And the core differentiator of a startup from a traditional business is that startup is a business which can scale very quickly, ideally with the help of technology. So if a business, for instance, someone opens a garment shop or a garment showroom, he's an entrepreneur, but his business is not a startup because it cannot scale at a very rapid pace. So startups are those businesses which can scale very rapidly. For example, a lot of you might have heard about the recent IPO of Zomato. So it's companies like Zomato, Flipkart, Ola. If you go back 15 years, probably somewhere around 2005, none of these existed. But today, these are the companies which are market leaders. For instance, Byju's uh, is world's largest education company. I think that's the only company which is a world leader in any space. So none of these companies probably existed way back in 2005. So in 10 to 12 years, they have scaled on to become market leaders. So generally in the startup ecosystem, we term all of these companies which scale as startups and other businesses as lifestyle businesses. So that's one. Two, the journey of a startup typically is divided into phases. Most of the startups are funded by venture capitalists, and the journey of funding or financing is different from a journey of a typical lifestyle business. So, for instance, if you look at most businesses, for example, someone wants to set up a shop. He goes to an investor and says that I'll make say 10 rupees of profits, and you invest the money and you probably get 5 rupees of profits out of it. uh, and the profits are shared between the investor and the entrepreneur. But in startup ecosystem it works very differently. The funding or financing in the startup ecosystem primarily works on exits. So all the people who invest in a startup typically are not looking at a dividend. They are looking at exits. For instance, uh, when you for one of you has come up with a prototype, you convert it into a company. Go to a seed investor. The seed investor say invests at a valuation of about say 5 crore rupees, and invests about 1 crore rupees. So he is not looking out of to take a share out of your profits. His core interest is that you scale up the startup to next stage. An angel investor comes in at a higher valuation, then a VC comes in at a even higher valuation, and when the VC comes in, the seed investor sells off his shares at a higher valuation and takes an exit. So that's the primary difference in terms of funding and financing when it comes to the startup ecosystem and the traditional businesses. Now, in terms of how does one scale from a prototype to a scalable business or a startup? I think one of the first things, once you have built a good prototype and you feel that it's good enough to take it to the next stage, I think one of the first things which young innovators should do is to consider crowdfunding. Globally, especially in the West, I think most lot of the innovations which have come out in last 1 decade have come via the crowdfunding route. Uh, 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 the biggest advantage of doing a crowdfunding campaign is because you are out there in the market highlighting your prototype, so you get a lot of market validation, because you might think that you have built a great prototype in terms of innovation. Probably your few other close family and friends feel that you have built a great innovation, but unless you get a market validation whether the general people or the potential customers are willing to accept the innovation which you built, or you might have to make certain changes to it, you will only get when you have a feedback at a mass scale. So crowdfunding helps you get good market validation, also helps you raise some initial capital. Also, the people who subscribe to your campaign or pay for your crowdfunding campaign, all of them are not just pay for your crowdfunding campaign, they also become your brand ambassadors, because they are with you at a very early stage. They are all like your brand ambassadors who go out and speak about you in the market. Also, crowdfunding campaign can be effectively used to generate a lot of good PR and marketing around your prototype. I personally have been in the crowdfunding space for some time. So we had acquired a crowdfunding platform called Catapult. Catapult was India's oldest crowdfunding platform. In fact, the founder of Catapult, Satish, is supposed to be the pioneer of crowdfunding in India. He was the first to introduce crowdfunding in India way back in 2009. So we bought the platform, uh, uh, ran it for about 2.5 years, but currently have shifted it to Singapore because most of the regulations around crowdfunding in India are gray, except for the crowdfunding campaigns which are around charity. The regulations, unfortunately, aren't very clear. So, because of which it's currently in transition stage, not active, and we have applied for the licenses of equity crowdfunding in Singapore. But we have had a lot of success stories emerge out of the platform. For instance, one of my favorites is a product called Peabody. It's a urination device for women. It was a very interesting innovation because when women travel outside, move outside, most of the public toilets aren't very clean. So there are a lot of risks involved. So they had invented a urination device wherein essentially women can stand and urinate in public toilets. Very well received in the market. They had done a crowdfunding platform campaign on Catapult. Uh, we had another very interesting success stories, Naso Filter, uh, which was again a very good success on our platform. Then there's another startup, HoloSuit, which is doing very well now. In fact, I had also invested into it. That again is a good success story to come out of Catapult. So Catapult is one example of a crowdfunding platform, but there are many international platforms like Kickstarter, like other international platforms which you can consider. But I think crowdfunding overall is a very interesting model uh, to build from a prototype to a full-fledged startup. And beyond, I think crowdfunding, once you decide to build your prototype to a scalable model, I think one of the first things which you will have to do is to convert it into a company, form a company, because that will open a lot of doors. Uh, uh, so although there are various sort of formats of company, there is sole proprietorship, there is partnership company, there's limited liability partnership. But I strongly advise that you form a private limited company, because otherwise it becomes very difficult to raise investment in the technology ecosystem of the country. So I think with the kind of support system you have at your university, you will have the right guidance in terms of shaping and forming the company. But do definitely form a private limited company whenever you decide to form one. So once you have a company, I think one of the first things which you should do is, now there are a lot of government supported incubators and accelerators across the country. I'm sure there would be few in the in West Bengal as well. So make a list of those incubators, research about them, depending on the sector. So whether the prototype which you have built is a robotics prototype, whether it's a prototype in the sustainable energy sector, or whether it's a digital prototype. So depending on the sector of your prototype, shortlist few incubators which focus on those sectors, and start applying for those to those incubators. Maybe seek the help of your ecosystem in the university for some recommendations. But I think these incubators can be very good support initially to begin with, because uh, at an incubator you can have mentors to help you shape a good model around your prototype. uh, and they also offer certain early stage investments, can also uh, 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 help you connect with the industry mentors relevant to your prototype. So I think one of the first things which you should do after forming a company is to apply to one of these incubators. One Another very very important aspect is, so for example, you might be two innovators, very good with technology, but before probably forming a startup or taking it to next stage, it is very important that you have a well-rounded founding team. uh, so think through a lot before forming a founding team. uh, a lot of times with a lot of university students, what I have seen is there are four friends. Just because they are friends, they become partners. That does not work. uh, uh, so you might be friends, but become partners or founders in a startup only if you, you all of you are right fit for the startup and have right synergies between you. uh, Also, there are certain sort of legal aspects which you should keep in mind. For instance, the one of the first things which you should have, there's something called as co-founders agreement. Before forming a company, or immediately after forming a company, do have a co-founders agreement signed between all the founders so that everything is clearly defined. And defining roles, responsibilities clearly actually helps the startup in the long run. That's one of the first things which you should do. Have a right team. Then if you haven't applied to an incubator or an accelerator, then I think one of the first things which you should do with the help of the support system you have at your university is to reach out to industry specific mentors. It's very very important to speak to a lot of industry specific mentors, get their feedback, get their suggestions before you scale it up further, because they are in the industry, they understand the requirements of the industry and the customers. There are a lot of finer issues which you might ignore or neglect, which they'll guide you about. So either you apply to a incubator or reach out to these mentors, or if you're not applying to the incubator, then definitely reach out to industry mentors for sure. I think another important thing is, if you are not taking the uh, incubator route, these days there are a few specific funds who fund good prototypes specifically of students who are currently in university. So I'll also share, probably post the session, I'll share the list of few such funds with Supratim. But I think he's already connected to a lot of these people in the startup ecosystem. So another way of probably raising some initial funding is to reach out to these funds which are specifically focused on university student entrepreneurs. So once you have formed a company, another very very important thing to keep in mind is there are these days there are a lot of government, there's a lot of support from the government also. Definitely avail these benefits. So for example, MSME registration is important. There are DIPP registration is important. So probably with the help of university you can have good CA guide you on all these schemes and the benefits. Uh, uh, so uh, it not just helps you in in terms of the benefits being offered by the government. Tomorrow, when you go out and seek customers, these days it's very important. For example, for PSUs to source certain percentage of their sourcing reads from MSMEs. So it also becomes easy to qualify for these orders if you have done the right registrations. And another important and very critical uh, 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 mm, point to take care of is the intellectual sort of IPs. For instance, have the have a good understanding about trademarks, uh, study a lot about patents. So between an ordinary product and a great product, IPs play a very crucial role. So do study a lot on IPs, and with the help of it, there are a lot of support system again for trademark registration, patent registration by the government as well. So with the help of your university, whenever there is a possibility for any even remote possibility to get a patent, definitely go for it, apply. Patents are a great differentiator. Even in terms of funding, patents play a very big role. For instance, I had mentioned one of my portfolio startup, HoloSuite. We have a lot of international patents at HoloSuite. And I think that's played a major role in terms of helping us get customers as well as raising funds. So that's another important aspect. I think one other important point is, if you have a great prototype, don't just limit your thoughts to the Indian market. Uh, Today, the world has become a small global village. There are a lot of opportunities internationally as well. So there might be products which might not be the best fit for Indian market, but might be a great fit for international markets. So there are a lot of startup programs, startup exchanges these days being organized between countries like Germany, India, Israel, India, Canada, India. So study about these opportunities also. So I know quite a few startups who had great products which were not relevant for Indian market, but they then via various exchange programs migrated to Europe or other countries, and their products are doing fantastically well in those geographies. So world is now a small global village. So whenever you build a prototype, don't just limit your thoughts to Indian market. Focus on global markets as well. I think one difference between Indian entrepreneurship ecosystem and I think Western ecosystem as well as Chinese ecosystem is, mostly Indian entrepreneurs limit their thoughts to the Indian market. Unlike, say, startups in Silicon Valley, wherein they are thinking global from day one, which is why if you uh, uh, see the top 15 startups to emerge out globally in last 15 years, I don't think you'd find any big name from India except for Byju's. I think it that is changing now a little bit. There are startups like Ola, QMath, Byju's, which have started to expand internationally as well. For instance, recently Byju's also acquired a US based education company. But I think still largely, especially at the early stage, uh, Indian entrepreneurs generally tend to think only from the perspective of Indian market. So think global from day one. Uh, Even Africa, for instance, is a great potential market. Uh, like we saw great growth in India and China in last couple of decades or 3 decades probably. Africa is the new frontier. Africa is probably where India was in 1980s. So think global. Also, I think uh, 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 there are a lot of active startup groups on internet, wherein a lot of existing entrepreneurs are exchanging thoughts. So do join these groups. For instance, Startup Delhi is one Facebook group which is active. There is Nexel, which is another Facebook group which is active. So do try and be part of these groups, because therein you will uh, get to learn a lot from entrepreneurs who are doing well, exchanging thoughts. And another very important aspect is a lot of Indian innovators accept, especially when you are not based out of a metro city. Although are great at innovations, uh, do not have a lot of market awareness about what is going on. So I strongly suggest, while you are innovating, good with science, good with technology, good with whatever you are building, it's very important to have the right market awareness. So at your age, please do probably subscribe to Economic Times, download uh, uh, the Your Story app, which covers the startup ecosystem. Download VC Circle, and definitely at least spend half an hour daily to understand what is going on in the startup ecosystem, and uh, overall at a macroeconomic level in the country. It's very important to have awareness. So unless you know what is going on in the world, probably you will not even be able to innovate uh, 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 at the optimum level. So at your age, it's very important to be aware of what is going on in the world. And I think I have had a brief conversation with Supratim. At the university level, I think you are already doing a lot. So would encourage a lot of young innovators who may not be very active with the council, to get more active, organize more interactions, uh, uh, and probably reach out to more people in the ecosystem. uh, uh, Between yourselves also, probably interact more, exchange thoughts, uh, and try and build a very active and robust community. Also, I think uh, there are a lot of great business leaders based out of Bengal, around you. They may not understand the technology ecosystem, but they understand doing business. So reach out to them, try and involve them in whatever you are doing, in whatever ways possible, and build a community. It will not just help you today, but also probably help students who uh, probably join the university subsequently. That's another big. So whenever I've traveled to Singapore or US, that's another big learning there. Uh, in West, so for example, in the Indian ecosystem, we expect more than what we give to the ecosystem. But what I have observed in Silicon Valley and places like Singapore is they give more to the community than what they expect from the community. So also, while you benefit from the community, also be a giver to the community. I think uh, uh, that's all for now. I'll probably have a few questions and then probably speak a bit more. Just wanted to be a little more interactive now, and then probably I can pick the thread and speak a bit more.
Yes, sir, that would be absolutely fine. There are two questions in the question answer box, and I think they are quite relevant actually.
Sure,
So you could just look at them. And I also have a question, sir, before you go further.
sure. I'll- So as of now, I can't see any question.
Yeah, actually I will narrate them to you, no problems. What about the defense
Dr.
startup?
Momita, I think I'm not too sure. Your audibility is low. I don't know whether it's my from my side. Just
Uh,
yeah,
my Am I audible now?
yeah,
I,
yeah.
yeah. So, um, what is the situation in the defense startup arena, sir? In the defense sector, what are the startup opportunities? That is the first question.
I think very, very, very good. I mean, very good question, Dr. Momita. I think unlike say 3 4 years ago, now uh, uh, there is a lot of change in the policy level and acceptance for Indian players in the defense sourcing. For instance, at our own the startup which I have mentioned couple of times, at Holosuit, we work a lot with Indian Army. I think now there is a lot of acceptance at a policy level towards Indian startups and Indian players uh, in the defense sector. That's one. Uh, Two, there is a great scope to also build a community around defense tech startups. Uh, Unlike other sectors, for example, agri-tech sector has a great community already developed. The defense sector also doesn't have a community in the country as of now. So mostly people do not know what is going on in which corner of the country. That's another thing. And I think third, there is also a scope. Maybe you can also consider it at your university level to have few defense focused incubators with the support of government. That's another opportunity because there is very limited in terms of incubation or acceleration level support for the defense startups.
Right, right, sir. Shupratim, please record this idea because you see, this is an area where the areas that our students are working in a lot, like machine learning, deep learning, robotics,
Yeah.
blockchain, they will be very useful actually in the defense sector. One more question that is, more. Okay, we can come back to that later. Somebody actually, this was a question by Deepak Kumar. Another attendee is asking about maybe if you could present some kind of a case study of some particular startup which has kind of scaled up well. Byju's, of course, you have given that example. We can read about it, but some example which you have in mind, something which you have been associated with. But that will probably you will take it up in the next section. I have a question, sir, before I let you move forward. You see, that is the privilege of the
Moderator.
anchor. You see, yeah, I can browbeat you as much as I want to.
Absolutely.
I will take this privilege now. I have basically, you were talking about, thinking internationally. You know, one might now have a different kind of a view, because you see, when we think internationally, we tend to homogenize factors, but India as such has so much of diversity and contradictions within itself. It is anyway 1/6 of the world population, right, in a very very small space. So it has its unique structures and its unique way of looking at the world, looking at life. So problems are very very unique here, I've started feeling now with my age, you see. And I feel that we should probably now focus the startups on specifically addressing Indian problems. What is your view, sir? This is just you know I wanted to know of you.
So, Dr. Momita, actually, I think that has started to happen now. Initially, I think so. We have had waves in the technology ecosystem. So, I think the first wave was the IT wave, which was spearheaded by Mr. Azim Premji, Narayan Murthy, and the likes. The second wave, which crashed, was the dot-com wave, wherein we had companies like Rediff and all. I think the third wave started somewhere around 2006, 2007 with the likes of Flipkart, Snapdeal, then subsequently Ola. So initially for 7-8 years, uh, because these startups were seeking money at the valuations which was unheard of in the country before. Because, for instance, the founders of Flipkart were ex-Amazon, so they knew what was going on in the world. So there was generally a preference from the investors' side, and because so this wave essentially first started from Bangalore, because most of the people who were initial investors, angel investors in the country were all ex Silicon Valley, who had lived in West, came back to India, or were still living in India, in the West. The first wave was essentially all Me Too startups, although some of them have customized their product for the Indian sensibilities. But for instance, if you look at Flipkart, Flipkart is Amazon of India. If you look at Ola, Ola was Uber of uh, 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 India. If you look at Snapdeal, Snapdeal initially started with it as a deal platform. It was Groupon of India. So if you look at all the early startups, they were all essentially Me Too startups, although some of them fantastically customized it for the Indian market. For instance, cash on delivery is an Indian innovation by Flipkart. Otherwise, that concept never existed. So they customized it for Indian market. Ola did a lot of improvisations on the training side, because imagine 12 years, 10 years ago, even in 2010, someone from a small city in Bihar, Sasaram, using an app to book customers, and it was unthought of. And the kind of effort required to train cab drivers in India was probably 5 times more than what it was required to train a cab driver in US, because the technology acceptance wasn't there. So first 7-8 years, because of the requirements or the probability of getting funding, most of the startups were emerged, which emerged were all Me Too startups. So they were all essentially Western concepts customized for Indian needs, which is the reason you would say the problems of Bharat weren't being addressed by these startups. But I think in the last few years, now that the ecosystem has evolved a lot. For instance, a very good example is a product called Krishify. So probably you can also have a look. Krishify is a social media platform for farmers in vernacular languages, with millions of farmers now using it for give what fertilizer should they buy, what yield should they grow in their farms. So it's again a social media platform like most other, but customized for the needs of the Bharat. So that's slowly happening, and I think in next three, and also I think the ecosystem is also trickling down now. For example, say when I first came into the startup ecosystem way back in 2013, you would never expect educational institutes probably taking interest in the startup ecosystem beyond Delhi, Mumbai, Gurgaon, Hyderabad, Bangalore, which were few pockets. So I think, especially with universities now like you also focusing on lot, and when students from, say for example, Techno Indian University come out with innovation, that will be most probably a problem for the Bharat, which they will be solving, unlike say startups in Gurgaon, which will mostly be Me Too startups.
Correct, correct, sir. That is absolutely correct. And Krishify is a great example. I just wish our students are listening and they are, they are already thinking about what they can do for that, that remote person sitting in a village who does not have
Yeah.
access. So,
So,
very correct. Our electrical department HOD, Professor Dr. Paul, he has asked a question, sir. What is the first step for registering as a solo proprietor firm?
I think it's a one page simple agreement. You open a bank account linked to your PAN card, that's it.
That's that. It's really that simple.
Yeah, sole proprietorship is very simple, but depending on the needs. So if you're looking at external investments, incubators, and all of that, so private limited is preferred. Now
Uh,
that you can also have a one director company.
Okay. Dr. Paul, I hope that answers your question. Sir, I would request you now to kind of take the discussion a little further. And if you could give us a case study or something like that, something you have been associated with.
Sure. So I think I'll give couple of examples. So one wherein I have directly been associated. The other is a journey which I have closely seen. So I was part of something called uh, Startup Leadership Program. So Startup Leadership Program is a worldwide fellowship uh, based out of Boston, spread across 30 cities, wherein they train existing entrepreneurs on practical aspects of starting a startup ecosystem. So I was privileged to be part of the fellowship program way back in 2013-14. So one very interesting journey which I have seen is the journey of ShareChat. Uh, so the founder of ShareChat, Fareed, was my batchmate. Uh, uh, so Fareed was a IIT Kanpur alumni, very very bright, brilliant. Fareed was an exception wherein uh, 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 in spite of being a college student, so typically startup leadership program doesn't take students. They only take full-time entrepreneurs. So they had made an exception for him. Uh, so today ShareChat is a unicorn. It's essentially a social media platform in 10 to 12 languages. They also have a short after the ban of TikTok. They also launched something called Moj, which is one of India's leading short video platform. And ShareChat now has raised uh, investments from Twitter, Xiaomi, all of that. It's it's close to a 10,000 crore company, and the journey only started in 2014. So I think couple of very good learnings from Fareed. Uh, so Fareed, before starting ShareChat, was working on a different concept, which was again a good, interesting concept. He also had funding commitments from investors on that concept. But in spite of having commitments of funding from investors, and Fareed again did not have a privileged family background, was from an ordinary family, so was struggling financially also back then. So in spite of struggling financially back then, in spite of having a funding confirmation from investors, he decided to scrap off the business model and work on a completely new business model. And the reason of doing so, he felt that the concept he was working on, while can be a good company, but cannot scale beyond a certain level. And he was looking at building something very very scalable. So after probably shutting down working on the previous model, I remember he even did not have money to afford flight tickets to Bangalore, went via train. Uh, uh, s- uh, Someone in Bangalore supported him. He was sleeping in his office, did not even have money to afford a flat. But in spite of all of that, did not give up on the pursuit of excellence. What I'm trying to emphasize, and then eventually switched to ShareChat once again, got investment commitments, raised money, and now it's almost a 10,000 crore company in 7 years. What I'm trying to emphasize here is a lot of times in India, uh, because of the societal upbringing which we have, we probably do not dare to think big enough, uh, and are contented at being above average. Uh, so now with the changing times, the internet penetration and world becoming a small uh, global village, I think it's time that young entrepreneurs and innovators in India also think big, think as big as you can, uh, and think with an open mind. And I think this is the best time for innovators. It's if we cannot do it now, probably there will never be a time as opportune as it is right now. I think that's one example. The other example is of a startup I personally am part of. It's called HoloSuit. So the founder of HoloSuit, Harsha, was directly working with uh, uh, Bill Gates on few projects. Was at I mean was in a very prestigious job at Microsoft building robots. He decided to come back to India and work on this called concept called HoloSuit. So at HoloSuit, essentially we develop micro sensors which are embedded in a suit and are probably world's most advanced micro sensors which can capture minutest motions in a body and then represented it on a AR VR screen. So he came back to India because of the sort of salary package which he had when at Microsoft. He had decent savings, so he had invested about $500,000, set up a lab in Mysore, and was continuously researching on the product and improvising it. Then he eventually did a campaign on Catapult, which is when we met him, uh, decided to invest. It was a fantastic product. I think when we invested in it, uh, the first thing which we did was that we suggested to Harsha that while you are innovating at the product and have been doing it since last 3 years, since the product is already ahead of the competitors, it's very important that you parallelly also start commercializing it. So which is when 3-4 months after joining as investors on HoloSuit, we started to commercialize and also parallelly get some initial customers. When we started to reach out to customers, probably which is when we realized probably that the direction in which the team at HoloSuit was working and the requirement of customers, there is a certain gap, so which we'll have to address. Then the product had to be pivoted a little to the needs of the market, and then from then on we ensure that commercialization and innovation both go hand in hand. So another important learning out of this for young innovators is uh, while you are innovating, building great products, also keep an eye on commercialization, because a lot of great innovations haven't seen the light of the day because there was lack of awareness of what's going on in the world. So it has to be a combination of innovation as well as commercialization. Any other questions?
Yes, sir. And I would like to say that this is a statement that I absolutely love, that commercialization and innovation has to go hand in hand. That is the one thing that I know of a UK based Indian entrepreneur, Mr. Arnob Basu, Dr. Arnob Basu, who has this company called Chromec. And when he initially started out, he actually basically has worked out, this reason why liquids beyond a certain point are not allowed now is because of this security system that he has developed.
Right.
Initially, it was actually not accepted. People felt that it was something that was useless. And then, after there was a bit of security issues, terror issues, and all, then the world suddenly woke up to the fact that this was something which could be very well done. And today, it's a company which is absolutely going places. It's based out of Durham, UK, and that
Mhm.
is why, because that commercialization part and the innovation part didn't stop together. So I think that's a beautiful way of putting it. And definitely our students as well as our postdoctoral fellows will take lessons from that. There is one question, sir, of you had mentioned the website names where there is a lot of interaction between entrepreneur groups, and they are exchanging ideas and all. So if you could repeat that part a bit, I think they would like to take some notes on that.
So there's a these are all internet group. There is a group called Nexel. Just checking on the spelling. Just a second. Nexel. Nexel.
Makes
Because I'm based out of Delhi. So there's in Delhi there is a group called Startup Delhi, Delhi Startups. I'm sure there would be few in Bengal as well. There will be so these are 3 4 example, but if you probably hunt through the internet, you'll find a lot more.
right. So there has to be a bit of research for this. Everything is not easily available.
So I'll probably share with Supratim. Three which I can recall as of now is Nexel, Startup Delhi, Delhi Startups. But I'll think of few more and send it to Supratim.
Right, sir. If you could do that to Shupratim, then all the students can access that. Shupratim,
And then probably what I would also suggest is follow a few LinkedIn pages. For example, so I got connected to Supratim via Venture Catalyst. So follow the LinkedIn page of Venture Catalyst. Catalyst, it's one of the most active investment groups in the country.
so please, I would expect all the students, they are taking these names down, and this kind of connectivity is what is going to help you get over that, that initial jitters, I would say,
Yeah.
and they can then, of course, take the help of the university, which the university is providing.
And definitely download the Your Story app. Uh, they cover in startup stories day in and day out. So at least you get to know what is going on in the ecosystem. So definitely then download 2 apps. One is the Economic Times and the other is Your Story.
US Story, Economic Times. Correct. Shupratim, would you like to come in at this point and address some questions or remarks?
Sir, one question I would like to ask on behalf of the faculties is that since at the university level, we are kind of mentors to our students. So whenever they're coming up with an idea or they're coming up with an innovation, when would we understand or when would we know whether an idea or an innovation is ready for a startup push or not? Is there any way we can gauge that metric?
So it's very difficult to define one single metric, Supratim. But I think there can be 3 4. So one is crowdfunding is a good test of whether a prototype is ready or not. The other is probably reach out to people in the industry, and that's another very very effective. So maybe reach out to 3 people in the same industry, seek their suggestions. That's another. Third is to probably reach out to potential customers and see if they are willing to pick up the product. Potential customers, I would say, is the best test.
So are there, sir, any kind of platforms where we as faculties we can initiate the innovations or we can display the innovations of our students for better market outreachability? Are there some platforms like that? If you could help us.
Unfortunately, nothing as of now, Supratim. So we at Catapult were once envisaging of building a student entrepreneurship platform with the exact same thought. But then we, because of the regulatory issues here, we decided to shift it to Singapore, and currently that's in this transition stage. Unfortunately, there is a huge deficit of relevant platforms around the student entrepreneurship space in India as of
Right, sir. You
there,
did talk
there's
about,
there's
yeah.
something called NEN. which is again active in the, maybe you can reach out to them. I'll also send you the links. There's something called NEN. Just a second, I'm
Yeah,
googling.
Supratim can actually have those links from you, and he can share amongst the faculty. And you did talk about this, because of these gray areas that are there in Indian regulations, there's a problem with the crowdfunding platforms as well. Maybe because of misuse as well. Maybe because there is a trust deficit. Uh,
Yeah.
it seems like a double-edged sword, sir. Well,
Absolutely.
uh,
Unfortunately, what happens in India also is, uh, so for example, the world is changing so quickly. So what happens is today is 2021. So basis 2021, we start framing policies. The process is so slow that we reach somewhere only in 2024. By the time what existed in 2021 again becomes obsolete. So the reason most of the, for even for something as big as e-commerce, which is like, I mean, the sector of which has seen the most growth in the startup ecosystem, and most of the people now are into online shopping. Unfortunately, even there are a lot of gray areas in e-commerce in India still, in spite of that being a dominant sector since last 10 years. So with technology, what is happening is things become obsolete very quickly, and the pace at which our policymakers work, that typically does not match with the pace at which the technology innovation is taking place. For example, there is a lot of hue and cry around the crypto regulations these days. You'll be hearing every 15-20 days. So unfortunately, even if say you have a blanket ban on something, at least have clarity on having a blanket ban. So what hurts India is indecisiveness.
that's actually the quote of the day. What hurts India is indecisiveness, and we will keep that quote. We will keep that quote. So we have reached the end of our time for the discussion, and what a discussion it has been, sir. Straight from the heart, as well as straight from the market, as well as straight from the ground realities. So that is something which I think we have benefited a lot out of it, because we have heard from an individual who has a big share of experiences of his own in the national as well as in the international sectors. Um, we are very, very thankful to you, sir, for making the time and providing such an inspiring discussion for our students, for our faculty members, as well as for our postdoctoral research fellows. And I'm very sure that the suggestions will be incorporated by our university as well as by the individuals who are working on these projects, and we will come up with much better ideas. And of course, we will create job givers. We will create people who will solve problems for society. As you said, that was a beautiful quote, that giving back, we expect first, and then we think about giving back. But probably that has to change in today's world. So thank you very, very much, sir. And
My
I guess
pleasure, and thank you so much for having me interact with all of you. I think it's a great initiative. I'll send across the relevant links to Supratim, and happy to help whenever required.
thank you so much, sir. That is something which our students might expect from time to time. A little bit of help, a little bit of
Absolutely.
encouragement.
My
Thank you
pleasure.
very much, sir. And we can end the session here. Supratim, I hope we can do that.
Yes, yes, definitely. Thank you so much, sir, for accepting our invitation for today and giving us today's time. Thank you so much, sir, for today.
Thank you. Thank you very much.